Fear is the number one tool that's being used by the fake matrix to control humans for most of the history of humanity. These fear activities have been implemented entirely behind the scenes, using different forms of spiritual and psychic attacks. Over the course of a human history, fear has been carefully integrated into every facet of a human society, and time has normalized these activities and made them native to the human way of life. Gang stalking is just another form of spiritual attack that the fake matrix uses to instill fear in humans. It is a more organized and concentrated form of spiritual attack that's targeted towards people that are either at the verge of waking up to this third dimensional illusion, or people that have found a way to wake up to this elusive reality called the matrix. There are many deceptive tricks that the attacker uses in gang stalking to project fear onto the target. And to really understand the attacker's fear strategy, you first need to understand the nature of the attack. You see, gang stalking and any other form of spiritual attack for that matter is not a human agenda. There are fourth dimensional entities that seek to control the human race. These are malevolent alien races, and there's a whole story on why these entities feel that the human race is their personal property. I try to explain that in one of my videos, which I've linked somewhere on the screen. These entities are the architects behind every form of spiritual attack. Every system and structure you see in the human society today is established and controlled by these entities, including your own family structure, the religious system, the educational system, the corporate system, the government, the media. All of these systems are controlled by these entities. And I know sometimes it's difficult to accept that your own family that you've known for all of your life is under the control of some fourth dimensional entity, right? But trust me, you will soon realize that even your own family is under the control of these entities the moment you become a target of a gang stalking attack. Now, most of these people and systems don't even know that they're under the influence of these entities. It's not like you're being initiated into anything, right? The fact that you came from an average family, an average neighborhood, an average community, an average society, automatically means that you're under the influence of these entities in most cases, even if you don't realize it. And here's why. Most humans arrive in this third dimensional realm in a lower state of consciousness with different timelines to awaken. This is what 3D consciousness is. So most of us humans are mostly unaware for most of the initial stages of our lives. There are few people that arrive on the planet in 5D consciousness, which is the higher state of consciousness. These are people that are highly conscious at birth. These people are ascended masters that have come back to help humanity in some capacity. And so their mission on the planet requires that they remember things from day one. For most people, the journey is to arrive on the planet in 3D consciousness, where they are mostly unconscious, and then move towards 5D consciousness, where they become more and more conscious along the way. This is the path of ascension. This is your spiritual journey, in other words. Now, the journey from 3D to 5D consciousness requires every human to go through the fourth dimension, which is 4D consciousness. This is not a physical journey. This is a journey from a lower state of consciousness, which is 3D consciousness, to a higher state of consciousness, which is 5D consciousness. The fourth dimension is the base station of these malevolent alien races that seek to control the human race. And the only way for these entities to maintain their dominance over the human race is to trap humans in 3D consciousness. Because in that state, humans are mostly unaware of their nature. So they've created a fourth dimensional system to trap humans in 3D consciousness and prevent humans from evolving into 5D consciousness. This system is what we know today as the Matrix. So technically, every human that exists in 3D and 4D consciousness, which is most humans on the planet today, can be controlled by the Matrix. Now, what happens is that every time you start to evolve on your spiritual journey, that's when these entities come at you with all these spiritual attacks. Most people are taken by surprise at their lowest point with these attacks, so they end up being trapped by these entities in the fourth dimension. Now, 4D is a higher state of consciousness than 3D, but it's more about control and dominance. So these people now become more aware than the average person, but this awareness is used for manipulation, control, and dominance. Once you get trapped by these entities in the fourth dimension, you automatically become an agent of the Matrix. So your own ascension up the Matrix ladder now depends on how many other souls you can trap in 3D and 4D consciousness. So it becomes your full-time job to ensure that no other human ascends beyond 4D. That's why as a target of gang stalking, if you pay enough attention, you will notice two types of gang stalkers. There's the partially awakened gang stalkers. These are people that got trapped in the fourth dimension on their ascension journey, and so they became agents of the Matrix. These people have some awareness of what's going on. They do not have the full picture because the matrix is the fourth dimensional system, and so it cannot be perceived in 3D and 4D consciousness. If you really want to perceive the matrix for what it is, you have to evolve into 5D consciousness. But at least these people have enough awareness to know that they're playing a part in something bigger and that they can manipulate this thing to their own advantage. These people can be found in various positions, like directors, managers, CEOs, presidents, celebrities, and so on. The higher you ascend up the matrix ladder, the higher your position. Their main role is gatekeeping, which in this context means preventing humanity from evolving. And they are playing this role without realizing that they're doing it in most cases. These are usually the people that are obsessed with all these demonic activities, like black magic, occult practices, destiny swapping, smear campaign, yada yada yada. And then there's the other types of gang stalkers, the ones that are totally unaware of what's going on. These are people that still exist in 3D consciousness, and so they're mostly oblivious of the matrix. These people include children, adults, sound people, mad people, people with physical disabilities, etc. They're family members, religious folks, government workers, soldiers, policemen, drivers, engineers, corporate professionals, media practitioners. Basically, every human that still exists in 3D consciousness, which again is most humans on the planet, falls into this category. These are usually the people that are used by these fourth dimensional entities to constantly harass the target. These folks are used for various tasks like constantly following the target around, displaying deadly instruments to the target, using food poisoning to constantly poison the target, using corporate and government agencies to constantly bully the target, and using various security agencies like the army, the police, the immigration to constantly intimidate the target. These folks are also used for different accident simulations, like vehicle and motorcycle accident attempts on the target's life. These entities do not see humans as the sovereign beings that we are. They literally see us as their energy source, and so they feel totally justified for committing all these atrocities in the human society. Actually, they showed you this in the movie The Matrix with the character Agent Smith. Agent Smith is an example of a fourth dimensional entity that's capable of using avatars in the third dimension to carry out its mission. I talked about Dracon 3/4Ds in one of my videos. That's what Agent Smith is, and that video is linked on the screen, by the way. Those people that Agent Smith is using in the movie, the people that he just walks into and get out of at will, those are the people that we are referring to as gang stalkers in real life. And the fact that Agent Smith can just use them at will is a depiction of their unconscious nature. In other words, gang stalkers are just less conscious avatars, aka humans that exist in 3D and 4D consciousness, that are being used by fourth dimensional entities, aka Agent Smith, to create a fear-based illusion around the target, aka Neo. And all of this for what? To prevent the target, Neo, from waking up to the matrix. So the goal is to prevent humans from evolving into 5D consciousness. Because the moment you evolve into 5D consciousness, you wake up to the matrix and game over. That's why as a target of gang stalking, if you remain resilient against the attack for long enough, you will start to experience activities that only happen in simulations. Example, how do you explain a situation where a vehicle comes from behind you, passes you by, and goes in the opposite direction, straight ahead of you? And then 5 minutes later, without coming back from the direction it went in earlier, the same exact vehicle, with the same exact license plate by the way, comes from behind you again, passes you by, and goes in the same exact direction it went in earlier. This is going to happen not once or twice, so it's not like some coincidental situation, right? It's going to keep happening over and over again until you realize that it's being done intentionally to project fear onto you. There are countless number of other things that you will experience as a target that cannot be explained. Like hearing sound when there's nobody and nothing around. Like being gang stalked by animals, dead people, and so on. These are all the tricks of these fourth dimensional entities using their fourth dimensional capabilities to create an illusion in the human society. So as a target, it's important that you do not waste your energy on these activities. I mean, you can observe them and enjoy the same, but just know that they cannot affect you in any way, shape, or form unless you allow them to. So they have zero impact on you. Which brings us to the final segment of this video. Finally, it's important to understand that you cannot be affected by these entities if you do not consent to be used in this agenda. The only thing they can do is to create these illusions around you with the hope that they can eventually scare you into unconsciously making an agreement with them. The people that are being used by these entities, aka the gang stalkers, are people that have consented to be used in this agenda. And 99% of the time, these people were tricked into these agreements. See, these entities understand universal and spiritual laws, and so they know that humans have free will. Going against the free will of a human will be violating universal laws, or we just going to be grave consequences. So the only other option they have is to deceive humans into these agreements, which is exactly what they are doing. Most of the systems in the human society today have been strategically designed to deceive humans into selling out their free will to these entities. Some people are consenting to this agenda through their families, generational curses. So this thing has been the way of life of some families for generations. And being born into those families automatically means that you get to inherit these generational curses. Some are consenting through their religion, which of course religion is the largest support system on the planet for all these spiritual attacks. Some are consenting to this agenda through different agreements, which is why it's important to not go into any agreements if you do not understand it. And if you're going into an agreement, then make sure to read the fine print. Most people are being lured into this agenda with little things like contract opportunities, corporate positions, travel opportunities, nice cars, nice homes, smartphones, pair of sneakers. You get the idea. These are all things that a human being is capable of creating if you take the time to know yourself.